Welcome to this deep dive where we really get into the information you've shared. And today, wow, we're tackling a big one. The brand new album, Time 2 from Wintersun.
Yeah, this one's landed with quite a backstory, hasn't it? I mean, 12 years after Time I.
12 years. And what, 18 years since it was first even announced?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
A staggering amount of time. So Time 2 is, well, finally here.
Exactly. And the journey, the whole story behind it, it's almost as epic as the music itself sounds. You've got the crowdfunding stuff, long periods where nobody heard anything.
Right, the radio silence.
Right.
And a fan base that's been on a real emotional roller coaster, anticipation, frustration.
Oh, absolutely. It almost became this legendary tale, this meme about the ultimate delayed album.
It really did.
So our goal today really is to try and cut through all that history, all that noise, and just dive into the music.
Yeah, focus on the album itself.
For anyone out there wondering, how does Time 2 actually stack up against Time 1? Does it live up to the immense hype and the band's reputation after all this time? We'll be looking at some initial reactions from some recent reviews.
And it's important, I think, like you said, to try to approach the music with fresh ears, if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Separate the art from the long and winding road it took to get here.
Definitely.
And what's interesting right off the bat from these reviews is, well, the contrast in how people even approached listening to it.
That's right. I saw one reviewer just went all in, calling it utterly astonishing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and their favorite album of 2024 so far, which is, a pretty bold claim this early.
That is bold. But then you have another perspective.
Yeah, another reviewer who kind of consciously tried to temper their expectations.
Right, because of the wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They wanted to see it simply as, okay, this is the continuation of Time I. Let's try and ignore the 12 years of buildup.
Which is probably a sensible way to go in, honestly. It avoids setting it up for potential disappointment.
It makes a lot of sense. After that long, the hype could crush almost anything. So, okay, let's talk comparisons. Time I versus Time 2. That first album, Time I, it definitely had some huge moments.
Oh, absolutely. Sons of Winter and Stars is the big one, isn't it?
Seems like it. One review specifically mentions that song, saying it's sort of a high watermark.
Yeah, they felt that no single track on the new album, on Time 2, quite hits that specific peak.
Interesting. Which really shows how much impact that one song had back then.
It does, but the reviewer also points out that Time I wasn't perfect across the board.
Right, I saw that too. They described the rest of it as maybe a bit more straightforward, rockier.
Yeah, and mentioned that some tracks, like the title track Time or Land of Snow and Sorrow, felt maybe overly drawn out.
Or even a bit slow and dull in places, was the quote.
Exactly. And that seems to be a key difference with the new one.
How so?
Well, this reviewer explicitly says, no such lows exist on Time 2. They really emphasize the consistency this time around.
Ah, okay, so it's more of an even listen.
Yeah, a strong level of quality across all the tracks, and it flows really well together. It feels like a single, cohesive piece.
All right, that's a good point. Let's dig into some of the specific tracks then. What are the reviews highlighting?
Okay, so the opener, Fields of Snow, it's described as, a solid, above-average intro track. Does its job well.
Dust the stage.
Exactly. Sets the tone, leads nicely into the next song.
And that next song is The Way of the Fire, right? That one seems to be getting a lot of attention.
It really is. One review even suggests it might potentially surpass Sons of Winter and Stars as the quintessential Wintersun song.
Whoa, okay. That is high praise.
Huge praise. And what's really interesting is this track isn't entirely new in a way.
Oh, how do you mean?
Well, apparently bootlegs of it, played live, have been floating around since, 2013.
No kidding. So fans have known about this one for a while.
Some have, yeah. And despite being over 10 minutes long, it's getting praised for its pacing. It doesn't drag.
Keeps you engaged.
Right. The review mentions a great balance between the orchestral bits, the guitar solos, the folk elements. It all just works together really well throughout the whole length.
Okay, cool. Then there's Storm. Sounds like that one connects back to a previous album.
Yeah, precisely. It's being praised for finally achieving that really dense, layered wall of sound.
That term.
That the Four Seasons album was kind of aiming for, but maybe didn't quite nail consistently.
Right.
This track, Storm, apparently delivers that.
Yeah.
And the review highlights the guitar work, precise and sharp, and says it has the best guitar solo on the entire album.
Nice. Any criticisms there?
Just a minor one, actually. The outro is mentioned as being maybe a little overly drawn out.
Okay. Seems like that might be a recurring theme because the next track, Silver Leaves, gets a similar comment. Right?
It does, yeah. even though that same reviewer calls Silver Leaves easily the best track on the album.
Oh, interesting. So best track, but still maybe a long outro.
Apparently so. It's built around what they call a single perfect riff.
Wow.
And then towards the end, there are vocals and finish that apparently just elevate the whole thing. Makes it a top-tier Wintersun song for this reviewer, just behind Sons of Winter and Stars.
But again, the outro comment.
Yep, noted again. But clearly the core of the song is incredibly strong, very impactful.
Okay. And there's an instrumental track, too, Ominous Clouds.
That's right. Described as an instrumental interlude. It's seen as a key part of the epic second half of the album.
So it helps build that overall journey feeling.
Exactly. Contributes to that sense of listening to a complete immersive experience, not just a collection of songs.
So stepping back a bit, if Time, I had these massive peaks, but maybe some valleys.
Right.
It sounds like Time 2 is maybe more like a consistently high plateau, a more even, strong listen all the way through.
That seems to be the consensus from these reviews, yeah.
Yeah.
And the connection between the two albums is definitely still there.
In terms of themes and sounds.
Oh, yeah. Lyrically, similar ground. Sonically, you absolutely know it's Wintersun. That signature bombastic complexity.
Good phrase for it, that layered, intense sound.
Exactly. That's all over both albums. But the feel is maybe slightly different.
How so?
Time 2 comes across more as that unified album experience we mentioned, something you put on and listen to from start to finish.
Like a journey.
Right. Whereas Time 2, maybe it had more individual songs that stood out on their own, potential sing-along tracks, perhaps more instantly memorable in isolation.
Okay, that makes sense. And of course, you can't talk about Wintersun without talking about Jerry Manpei.
Absolutely not. He's the driving force.
His contribution gets highlighted.
Oh, definitely. His songwriting genius is mentioned quite a bit, especially in how those big main tracks are put together.
The complex structures.
Yeah. And his vocals get praised, too. Amazing vocals that shine again on this record.
And the long wait. That's partly down to him, too, right? His perfectionism.
Yeah. That's a big part of the narrative, yeah. Especially with the mixing and mastering. He's known for wanting everything to be absolutely perfect, which, takes time.
A lot of time in this case.
An exceptional amount of time.
Which leads us back to the whole fan experience. It's almost impossible to discuss Time 2 without acknowledging that huge wait. It really did become a joke online.
The meme status, yeah, the reviews definitely touch on that. And the incredibly high expectations that built up over a decade.
For sure.
And there's an understanding that for some listeners, maybe no album could realistically live up to that level of hype.
Yeah, you could see how some people might feel let down, almost regardless of the quality, just because the anticipation was so immense.
Exactly. It really sounds like the best advice if you want to truly appreciate the music.
Is to try and block out the history.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Try to listen with an open mind. One reviewer explicitly says, try listening as if it's just a regular new release, not this mythical beast that took 12 years.
Easier said than done, maybe, but probably good advice.
Probably. And there's also a mention of, how frustrating it got for some fans. One review even hinted that the whole thing was starting to feel like a potential scam or cautionary tale in Nordic metal.
Oof, yeah.
But the release itself seems to have turned that narrative around for a lot of people. The fact that it's here and apparently very good.
Right. So for someone new or someone who's intrigued now that it's finally out, what's the suggested path? Jump straight into Time 2.
The general recommendation seems to be listen to Time I first.
Okay. Get the foundation.
Exactly. It's maybe more immediately accessible, gives you a good grounding in their sound. Then when you tackle Time 2, the advice is basically take a deep breath and calm down.
Haha, right. Chill out about the wait.
Yeah. Try to focus purely on the music without the baggage of its complicated history. And, keep in mind Wintersun's style is very specific. It might not click with everyone.
Fair point. It's intense music.
It is. Very layered, very complex.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What's the main takeaway from this deep dive into the initial reactions to Time 2?
I think the overriding feeling is that despite the incredibly long, incredibly complicated journey,
Yes.
Time 2 really does seem to be a musically significant piece of work. It effectively continues what Time I started, expands on that sound world, and delivers a powerful, cohesive album.
So musically, it seems to justify itself, despite the wait.
That appears to be the consensus from these early takes, yeah.
Which leads us nicely into our final thought for you, the listener. Considering that decade-plus wait, Think about how the band evolved, how music technology changed in that time.
Right, so much happened between Time I and Time II's release.
Exactly. So how does the album sound? Its complexity, its very structure, maybe reflect that huge passage of time. Does it sound like something that needed 10 years, or does it sound like a continuation that just got delayed?
And what could this whole drawn-out process mean for Wintersun's future? Will the next one take another decade, or have they found a new rhythm now?
Lots to think about there. It's definitely something to consider as you, hopefully. Go check out Time I and then Time 2. Try and form your own opinion, focusing on the art maybe, more than the saga behind it.
Good advice.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.